What's going on? My name's Matt Parker and today is my absolute pleasure to be checking out the new SP1 5-string from Dingwall Guitars. But before we get on with the video, please remember to like and subscribe as it really helps me grow this channel and means I can keep checking out more cool basses. Right, let's get back to it. So before we get started, it's worth saying I am a massive Dingwall fan. Between 2019 and 2022, I played Dingwalls exclusively. I've owned 12 Dingwalls and I used to have a custom shop Super P as well, which is kind of my bass that got away. I wish I'd never sold it. So I feel like I'm in a good position to talk about the Super P. In fact, it was actually my dream to be a Dingwall artist. I was a massive fan of the brand and I really wanted to work with them, but it just kind of looked like it was never going to happen. And then other brands started reaching out, asking to work together. So I ended up selling all my Dingwalls and kind of working with those other brands. But yeah, still a huge fan. Think Sheldon is an absolute visionary in terms of what he brings to bass design. And I can't wait to deep dive this bass. So starting at the body, you can see it's a very classic design. It's obviously Dingwall's take on an F-style instrument. So obviously it's a PJ configuration. Looks very P-style in aesthetic with some modern features which help bring it into the new era. The body itself is made of alder, a classic tone wood we'd expect to find on this style of instrument. And then it's mated to a one-piece maple neck with a rosewood fingerboard. So taking a look at the pickguard, you can see it is an art design originally by Hugh Fisher, which has been digitized and is now used on all of the Super Ps, which I think is a nice touch, including an artist's work. And you can also see it's got these recessed sections here for the control knobs and for the output jack. Moving on to the pickups, we can see it's got Dingwall's split P pickup and then an FD3N in the bridge, which is kind of what we'd expect. N stands for neodymium and is quite like a bright pickup, sounds very jazzy as we'd expect, and yeah, really nice pickup. Taking a look at the bridge, we can see that this has got Dingwall's new minimalist bridge. This is very close to what you would have got in the custom shop. Previously, all the import Dingwalls used to have like a monorail bridge, so like single bridge saddles per string, but now they've moved over to this kind of like single piece base plate. As per the custom shop models, it uses these domed Allen key bolts as saddles. Obviously, these are height adjustable, and then these are on like a sliding base plate, which you can move around for adjustment. Now, interestingly, with this particular bridge, it also comes with a shim. So if you're kind of a heavy-handed pick player and you don't want to be raising these up too high where they could snap, you actually just shim the entire bridge and just use these for fine-tuning, which I think is quite an interesting feature and certainly not something I've come across with other brands. So moving our way to the neck, we see it's got kind of a classic headstock design. Previously, the custom shop ones used to have kind of like a cutout here with the logo, but you can see that this one hasn't. It's just got like kind of a logo up here, and then it's got a 4+1 machine head design, again very typical of this style of instrument. Moving our way down the neck, we can see it's got a really nice slab of rosewood for the fingerboard, and it's actually got a banjo size fret wire. What this means is the fret wire is a lot shorter than what you'd expect to find on stringed instruments typically, and that really kind of helps speed up the playing experience. It almost in some ways makes it feel more like a fretless in that you can really deck the action, and because you've not got as much fret material, yeah, it offers a really fluid playing experience, which is really nice. Now the bass features a Graphtec nut. Because of the way multi-scale works, often the fretboards are a little bit wider, but they don't feel it because of the way the fretting system works. So the nut width itself is about 53mm, but if you were to take it into consideration in terms of actually how it would be as a parallel instrument, it's about 45mm. So it's about what you'd expect for a 5-string. It feels really nice. In fact, the string spacing actually feels fairly tight at the nut end, which I'm a big fan of. It really helps kind of speed up the playing experience. Flipping the neck over, we can see it's got these kind of lollipop tuners. I'm not sure if they're Hipshot or not. They're not Hipshot branded, but they're certainly Hipshot style if they aren't. They seem to work really well. They're nice and lightweight. Again, helps take a bit of the neck dive off. And this is something that we find with Dingwall quite a lot. They're very sensitive to weights. So typically we're always looking to try and kind of like remove any unnecessary weight where they can. So taking a look at the back of the neck, we see it's got this really nice sculpted heel design with a 5-bolt on neck construction. Again, as per many modern basses at the moment, avoiding a neck plate. These screws aren't as recessed as I would like. They are slightly proud, which for me, when I'm wearing braces and stuff or belts, they might rub a little bit. It's just something to consider. And while we're talking about the neck, it's worth noting it's a 9.5-inch radius, so you're going to feel very similar to like a lot of modern Fenders. And in terms of scale length, the low B is a 35-inch, so it kind of just tightens that low B up a little bit, although you're not getting as much as the 37-inch other Dingwalls. And then the G string is actually 32-inch, so what they're doing is they're removing 2 inches from the kind of treble strings, which just helps sweeten them up. Sometimes, obviously, with jazzers or P basses, the treble strings can be a little bit more abrasive, a bit brighter, and they don't always have the same balance. So in order to kind of balance that timbre out, they've actually removed some scale length, which just sweetens that top end a little bit. And like many basses at the moment, it features a heel truss rod adjustment, which again, I'm a huge fan of. I'll say it again, I wish this was the industry standard. More people should be doing this. It's so much easier than headstock designs. So we all know why you're here. You want to hear this beast in action. So let's get down to some tones. So there we have it, the Dingwall SP1 5-string bass. I really like this bass. It sounds amazing plugged in. It's a really nice weight for a 5-string, not too heavy, which is very in keeping with how I remember my custom shop being. And it plays great. In fact, there's very little to differentiate my old custom shop with this. I would say the neck finish is slightly different. This is a bit more satin, whereas the Super P from the custom shop that I had was a little bit more gloss. But that being said, it's a really nice example of a modern PJ bass. So there's a lot to like about this bass, but there are a few little niggles I thought I'd mention. I'm not being paid for this video, so I can be very unbiased in terms of how I'm doing this review, and I thought it was just worth mentioning now. Now, for me, one of the first niggles is the price. When these were announced, they were supposed to come in around D-Rock pricing, which at the time was about $12.99. Now, D-Rock's now, at the time of making this video, around £1,500. You can kind of shop around and pick one up for. But these are coming in at over £2,000. For me, as a fan of the brand, it has been hard to swallow recently, seeing the almost constant price increases with these basses. Obviously, I understand inflation, I understand supply and demand. Put that into perspective, in 2021, I paid £2,600 for a really, really custom spec Dingwall Afterburner from the Canadian custom shop. And now that same bass would be over £4,500. So in just 4 years, we've had nearly 100% price increase. And again, this has been across the range, not quite to the same extent, but in 2019, for example, I remember shopping around for NGs, which you could still pick up for around £1,400. And now an NG is well over £2,000. And it's just kind of one of the reasons that I actually ended up coming out of the brand as well, because as a professional musician, If I was spending £2,000 on something and it got beer thrown on it, or it got damaged on a flight, or you know, it got stolen at a gig, it would actually start to become quite hard for me to replace it, unless obviously it went through insurance. But just as a financial outlay, it's a lot of money. And when you consider this is made in Indonesia, you have to wonder where some of that money is going, as it's probably not going on the workers' wages. That, coupled with the fact that you're actually paying more than a Fender Ultra precision or jazz bass, which also comes with a hard case, whilst this comes with a gig bag only, does make it a bit of a difficult financial proposition to justify for someone like myself. The second little niggle is some of the QC. Now, Dingwall historically has been really, really good in my experience with QC, but I pulled this one new out of a box, and it had a couple of little marks in the finish. It had some marks which almost look like strap marks or something like that, a little black residue near the strap buttons. There's some marks on the pick guard as well, and it's just kind of a little bit disappointing again when you're thinking that you're paying over £2,000 for an instrument. I will say Dingwall's customer service has always been absolutely exemplary. Whenever I've needed anything with my previous ones, they've always been super quick to sort it out. But again, just something I thought I would mention, as you know, this is an unbiased review. I'm not getting paid for it. I'm not affiliated with Dingwall, so I just thought I'd mention it to any prospective buyers. My third niggle is the controls. So whilst we've got volume and a pickup selection, I think they've missed a trick in terms of having a volume tone, and then either having the series and parallel on a push-pull or something like that. One of the things that I love about PJs and jazz basses, or any kind of two pickup bass really, is the fact you can, most of them, you can blend the two pickups together, and you can't do that on this bass. You can either have neck, bridge, or both on full in series or parallel. But when I'm gigging my 72 jazz bass, for example, I often find myself moving in between pickup sounds, either to suit the song or just because the rooms sound slightly different and maybe I need a little bit more top end, maybe I need to roll that back a little bit. Although the tones with the quad tone selector are very good, you do lose some of the flexibility by not being able to blend the pickups in a way that you want, and instead they are predetermined. And I think at this price point, it would have been very easy for them just to rewire this in a way where you could have had all of that functionality and still been able to blend it. And while we're talking about the electronics, one of the things that I really miss from the Custom Shop Super P is the passive mid boost. So the tone part used to be notched, and then if you went past the center detente, then you used to have a passive mid boost. Whoa, wait a second. I realized when I was editing the video that I actually said mid boost when I meant mid cut. I've been playing a lot of active basses recently and they all have mid boost, which is why that was in my mind. So sorry, what I meant was passive mid cut. I used to use it all the time, and it's a real shame that they didn't include that in this. I think that would have been an easy thing to have included, but unfortunately it didn't make it to the production model. So that being said, although there's a couple of minor niggles which are personal preference, this is a really good sounding bass. It sits really well in the mix. It's gorgeous to play, super comfortable. I've really enjoyed my time with it. And big shout out to my friend Ryan, who had this shipped from new to me for a setup, but said I could review it at the same time. So massive thanks to him. And yeah, hope you've enjoyed the review. As always, I've been Matt Parker. Please remember to like and subscribe, as it really helps me grow this channel. And until next time, I'll see you soon.